Well, we say hello to the next presenter, and that is Valentine Charles. And she's also a member of the program committee, so some of us know you quite well. You're most welcome. Valentine, you are an interoperability specialist at the European Library and Europeana, and I think you are responsible for the data model as well.
Yeah.
And today you're going to talk about collection level access to library resources and something about the Centauri project. Yeah, you're welcome.
Good morning, everybody. So we have got a presentation which was more about item level search and metadata, and today I'm going to talk about collection level description. And I will try to explain how, in fact, collection level description can enhance user experience. And when I'm talking about user in this presentation, I will specifically speak about researcher and in humanities, because it's the kind of user we are looking at the moment. So where I'm coming from, so I'm working for the European Library, which is a service collecting metadata for bibliographical records, so all the catalogs, and digital metadata for digital objects from the 48 national libraries of the Council of Europe. So it's Europe, the extended Europe. So we also work with the National Library of Russia, of Azerbaijan, Georgia. So it's the larger representation of Europe. And we also work with university and research libraries. So now we have consortium that have joined the service, such as RL UK for UK, so a consortium of research libraries. So we are a service, and we work in a larger ecosystem which involves other actors in the digital library landscape. So all the metadata for digital objects that are collected by the European Library are also sent to Europeana. So the European Library is representing libraries within the bigger landscape of Europeana, which represent all the domain together, so the museum, archive, and libraries. And we are also working now with some research infrastructure, and more especially for these years with the Sendai project, which has started quite recently, so 2 years ago, and I will talk a bit more later about this project and how we interact with this project. So we are collecting all this data, and quite often when then we think about developing services, developing new functionality, we always look first at what we have for digital objects. But in fact, when you check a bit the reality, digitization is still in progress, and we are only looking now at the tip of the iceberg. So if you look at the Enumerate survey, which was a survey run in Europe the past 2 years, so they have identified that only 10 to 12% of the cultural heritage content, so including libraries, have been digitized. So this is for Europe, but when we look a bit at United States as well, we see that there was this New York Times article which were mentioning that only 10% of the 100 million objects from the Library of Congress have been digitized as well. And this article was raising the fact that probably a lot of these items will never be looked at and will be lost forever. So this is the kind of reality we have to deal with. And then we also have all this 10% of digital material we have and the metadata we have for those objects. So what we have, so metadata for bibliographical record and digital object that can be searched through this kind of search interface. So this is a screenshot from the European Library portal. We have also some digital objects, so usually we try to display them in a different way because they are quite visual, and we know that people like visual. And then we also have full text now, and we also show full text in a different environment because we think full text needs a different interface to be looked at. So we have all this rich material, but as you see, they are located in different services, different interface, and they are not really connected to each other. Most of the time, because all of this material have been brought in through various projects that are also different purposes. So then you end up in this kind of diversity. And if you look at those items, most of them are item level descriptions. So we have the metadata for the item, but when you look more in detail to them, you discover there is a lot of problem with the quality of the metadata, and in fact you can't do much with it, and for a user that would be very difficult to find the material when the title is missing, where the description is very vague. So we have to deal with all these problems. So the information is not connected, even though you have this relation. You could make the relation. Maybe this full text can also be found in this list of search results, and then could be linked to a scan image of the newspaper, as you see there. So the role of the libraries, I think, or services like the European Library, would be to make this connection easier to understand for the user. So at the European Library, we have decided to try to do that by developing a strategy based on a collection level description. So since already 2005, so when the service was launched, we have been collecting a collection level description. So for this collection description, we have a little metadata profile with various fields, and we collect information. We enhance them by talking with historians, sometimes looking on specific topics to try to make them more complete. And we try to gather them through surveys that we are sending to our libraries members. So then what we do, we publish them on our portal. So for example, this one is a collection of Slavic manuscript, which is not digitized. So you have this kind of rich description, and then what you have is just a link to the original website of this library, because we can't go further, but at least you have this description describing what is in there, what was the time, what is the time coverage, the geographical coverage, etc. We have also collection description for digital items. So you have a rich description, and then you can access to the individual item, but sometimes those individual items don't contain the information that we have at collection level. So at least it gives you some contextual information about these collections. Or this item, sorry. And then we have also sometimes what libraries call their specific collections, some rare collections, such as this collection of sounds, which are not really visible on the web, and in a way the collection level description helps to make this collection a bit more visible. So I know some of you will tell me, well, you collect collection description and then you publish them on your portal and you stop there. I mean, this is not really new. It's true, it's not rocket science, but in a way it's still needed, because if you look at a specific user, and in our case we are looking at the humanities community, the traditional humanities user, they still want to, what they want is to search in a large corpora of information to find a lot of material about a specific subject, and then find specific items. But in fact, the collection they are interested in usually are not the ones that are available as digital form, so they can't access to the individual item. And also the collection they want usually are not even known from them. So you have a lot of collection that could be relevant for them, but they even don't know they exist because they are not visible. So that's why this first approach of publishing collection description on a portal is already, it's still quite useful. But we wanted to go a bit further in exploring how collection description are useful for the humanities, which is the community we are looking at. And that's why we are collaborating with this project called Sendari, which is working with libraries and archives. And it's aiming at, it's currently building a research infrastructure based on two case studies, which are the First World War studies and the medieval studies. So they have decided to focus on two specified use cases. So how we have so we have worked with this project. So what is the approach of Sendari? The approach is to collaborate with libraries and archives from the beginning of the research process. So the idea is when a researcher is starting to work on a topic, the researchers should from the beginning try to work with the data libraries have been made available. And so the idea is to support the research question from the beginning in collaboration with institutions. And the idea is to facilitate the historical research processes and to support also the comparative studies. So by collecting all the data from various archives and libraries across Europe to push researchers to not work on the specific countries but to have this kind of transnational approach. And the idea for Sendai is to try to push researchers to make the link between the different material that is old in libraries and to connect those sources with their research data. So what was the first step? So since Sendai is working on two specific areas, so the First World War and the medieval studies, they have built what they call an archive directory, which is in fact a list of collection description, and the European Library has provided collection description to this big registry. And the idea was to focus on very specific collections that are at the moment a bit hidden from the public. So a lot of small collections coming from east of Europe that have a lot of values but are quite unknown from the public. So this is what was done. So the data were collected, all these descriptions were described according to a profile, and then what we wanted to do, so Sendai is not stopping to what we call the traditional humanities user. Now we want to address what we call the digital humanities community, who, as the traditional humanities user, want to exploit large corpora, but they want to do it in new ways by applying some computational processes and to integrate all those sources with their research data and other data. So the collection description were transformed in RDF data and published as linked data to be further reused by the researcher with other data. And this, to facilitate this reuse of the data, Sendai is building an environment which is called the concept of the archive research guide. So what it is? The idea, so as I said, is to support researchers in their research, so the full process from the selection of the sources to the writing of the narrative, etc. So this is a mock-up, but the full tool is at the moment being built. So the idea would be a researcher would start working on his topic, so taking some notes, starting to write little paragraphs, some narrative. And while doing that, the idea would be for this researcher to use sources and data that are available as linked data in RDF and to incorporate them directly in this narrative. So what you see in the middle would be the narrative, and around you have a lot of data that are available. So you would have this collection description where you could link your narrative to specific collections, saying my sources are coming from this collection. While you write your narrative, you mention people, places, and instead of just writing a text saying, well, this happened in Poland at that time, you can reuse data and make Poland an entity that is described in an ontology, and then link your narrative to those data. So really reusing data directly in your research work. And again, so you could have various, you could have data, metadata for individual objects, you could link to scan image of manuscript, etc. So the idea is really to integrate the data coming from the archive and the library directly in the research process. And on top of that, there would be a few tools that are developed at the moment that can be run in parallel, such as name entity recognition. So if you write your narrative, you could then apply name entity recognition technology to identify all the entities you have mentioned in your narrative, and then transform your text bit into a string that can be reused later, or some annotation tools. So how collection description have been integrated in this work? So it's considered as an access point for further sources, but also all this collection description contain really rich information. So by applying some technologies such as the name entity recognition, you can extract very useful entities that can be integrated later in the domain ontology. So at the moment, Sendari has developed an ontology for First World War. So by identifying all the entities that are mentioned in this description, to pull them out and to bring them back in their ontology, and then when the archival research guide will be used by other historians, then everybody is reusing the same terms to make things less ambiguous. And in a way, it's also, this tool is also a way for the community of the historians to talk a bit more to each other by reusing the same ontology, the same tools, etc. And doing everything really reconnecting to the materials that have been curated by archive and libraries, because what is really important is to make this connection between this community of researchers and the libraries and archive, because at the moment this collaboration is not yet really happening. So we have seen, in fact, the real value of this collection description is when they are integrated with other data, so with research data, but also other data that are available on the web. So what we are looking at now is really to curate the current collection description we have by aligning the entities we have identified within this description to vocabularies that are available on the web. So for example, if we have a place mentioned, this is a collection of manuscripts published in Italy, then instead of having Italy, you can link it to, for example, GeoNames, which is an ontology for geographical places. And you could do the same for, if you have manuscript mentioning all places name, you could reuse vocabulary that are at the moment available online describing all places name. And we want to do the same for subject by reusing the Library of Congress subject headings, and also the time period. So this is ongoing work. And the idea, so we are currently starting to do it, is to publish this data as linked data and make them accessible. So then you would have access to the metadata for the item level, but the collection description are also available as data. So then you can reuse them further in your work. So at the moment you can access the data via data dumps or via the API. So what are the next steps? So what we want to do is to look into connecting this collection description with other data and other type of material. For example, we think linking this collection description with some full text could be quite useful and would give new opportunities for researchers. And we want to also apply more and more all this technology I have mentioned today on this collection description, and to see how we can start reusing them to provide more subject access in the portal. So if you would search for a specific subject, you would get all the collection description in relation with this subject, and then it could be an access point to start digging further and maybe finding an item if by chance it has been digitized. And so we continue collaborating with Sendari, and the idea would be when the researcher will start using the data while doing their research work, it could be really interesting to see what are the connections they will make and how we can embed that back into the European library services, and maybe to bring it back to the libraries as well. So it's really it's going to be really interesting to see how all this work that we are currently doing in our institution and our services are going to be reused by researchers, and how how we can really support them in their work. So the Sendai project in total is a 4-year project. Now it's finishing its 2nd year, so there is still 2 years to go. So I invite you to stay tuned and to follow the development, because at the moment the prototypes start to really look good. So it's going to be the 2 more years of the project are going to be really exciting. Yeah, so that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Valentine. And now it's time for some questions. Well, of course, I have a question for you. Yeah, I wonder, what is the biggest benefit, you think, to work with the collection access and access points?
But I think the problem is now the digital library is like a big movement, and we think we go to this digital age. But I think the reality and the fact that we won't be able to digitize everything. So I think having this collection level description at least allows you to describe what you have in a very, you can provide really rich information without spending too much time describing everything, and you can still reuse this data and also offer visibility on the web for all these researchers that are really interested in this hidden collection, because when you are a researcher, you want to find what nobody has found yet. Yeah. But you need also to get this access a bit easier. So for me, it's really a way to promote all these resources in a...
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Yeah. Yeah.